Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Gayle Carson. Welcome to Living Regret Free, a program that shows you how to live a better and more joyful life. As an added bonus, I invite you to listen to an introduction to my Mindset Matters program, which ties into this so well. Go to www.sobmindset.com. It's free, and I know you will enjoy it. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Today's guest is a really important one, and you really need to listen to this interview if you are a person who is taking care of someone else. Because my guest is Marianne Stevens. She's a certified therapist who works with carers and helps them to care for their parents and still have enough energy to work, to take care of their children, and do fun stuff as well. Because every carer needs an advocate for their own well-being and emotional decision-making. She has a special heart for carers and dementia because this disease is so difficult to be around. Welcome, Marianne. How are you?
Hi, nice. Thanks for having me.
And you're coming to us from where? Belgium?
Yeah, I'm from Belgium. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. It's wonderful to have you with us. So let's talk about some things here because you're a carer, and that's not an easy job. So why did you choose the caretaking business?
Well, my mom went sick when I was 12. So at that point, I did the whole household, the cleaning, the shopping, the groceries, everything that needed to be done in the household because my dad was a fireman. So he was away from home for 24 hours every time. So I even helped nursing her and treated her. So it was really a big issue at that point. But it was only when I became 45 that I realized it wasn't so normal to do that. For me, it was obvious it needed to be done, so done deal, I did it. But caring was always there, and it was without a doubt that I did it. But it was just only afterwards I realized it wasn't so normal, actually.
Well, it's interesting you said 12 because when my daughter was 12, she didn't have to take care of me, but she did do the cleaning and she did do the marketing and she did do the cooking because that's what she liked to do. And I paid her to do it. So it was wonderful for her and wonderful for me, but she didn't have the extra obligation of taking care of me personally.
Yeah.
But why are you so hooked on dementia? Because that's just such a horrible disease for anyone to have to go through.
Well, if you compare it to cancer, and I'm not saying cancer isn't an awful disease, so don't get me wrong, but if you have that diagnosis of cancer, a whole enrollment is set in place. The medication, the first chemo, more exams, social service comes around, or at least in Belgium. But with dementia, you just get the diagnosis, and 15 minutes later, you're back on the street, and nobody tells you anything. So at that point, you just turn to Dr. Google, and you just see what he's going to tell you, and that's awful. Well, knowing that dementia, once you have the diagnosis, it's 8 to 13 years of caring, which is really lonely and a long time to do. And on top of it, it is hard to compare one person with dementia with the other because every kind of dementia is different. We always think that dementia is just forgetting things, but it's so much more than that. It's not being able to swallow or not being able to find your words. Or if you have frontotemporal dementia, it's not even comparable with Alzheimer's because you don't forget anything. The only thing that happens is you get not only thing, but you get emotionally detached. For them, if you have frontotemporal dementia, which is already young dementia also, it's the same if your bread is finished than if a good friend died, for instance. So emotionally, they're not the same anymore, and it's not your parent anymore. It's really strange. So it's difficult to reach out to other people and find a common ground, even if you're if your friend is taking care also of somebody with dementia. So it's very lonely for a carer.
But you talked about boundaries and things like that. How do you put that into a caring situation when everybody needs your attention all the time? You're not only caring for the person you're taking care of, but many times you've got your own family, you've got your own kids, you've got your own spouse, you've got your own work, you've got your own everything. So how do you deal with that?
Well, it's not easy. It's never going to be easy. That's the first thing. But you have to find your qualities, actually, and see what are you good at, and delegate everything else, or try to delegate everything else. And if you can't, you just have to reach out, and if you do things that don't give you energy, you have to compensate that with something that does give you energy. And it could be cooking a meal, or it can be chatting with a friend, but always keep that kind of balance. That's really necessary. And you just have to learn to give also other people a chance. And it won't be so good as when you do it, but it's really necessary, because otherwise you can't make it.
Well, I was just going to say, at some point, it has to be so frustrating. So what are the qualities that you put into a caring situation so you can keep on caring? Now, with you, it was your mom. So it was, it's a different thing than if you're a carer for, I don't want to say a stranger, but someone who is not a family member. So what qualities do you put into this?
Well, it's really the thing with a stranger. It's nice that you say that. The difference between taking care of somebody that's a stranger or is not so close to you, that your mom, dad, or your partner, for instance, then that means that that it's a lot more easier to make your boundaries, to say that I will do, but this no, that you have to look something else, another solution. That's the first thing. But the qualities you need is everything multiplied, what you do right now. That's organization, administration, speaking with your family, dealing with tensions and arguments, coping with medication, taking somebody to the doctors and repeating it in normal language, what's going to happen, which medication you have to take, treating wounds. The list is incredible. So you really have to know what kind of task is giving you the energy you need to carry on for those 13 years, if necessary.
So how do you, Marianne, make difficult decisions for somebody else? I mean, that's a big responsibility.
Yeah, it's like a parent's gap. Yeah, they have to change lifestyles, sell their homes, let you do the finances, and that's all part of being a carer. And it's not an easy thing to give up for them, and it's not an easy thing to ask or to start a conversation about. There is no easy way. That's the honest truth. There is really no easy way. But the best thing you can do is have these kind of conversations in a very early stage. So you know what somebody wants when he still is conscious, what somebody needs, what he doesn't want, so you can fill it in later on. And that makes that you can stand for your ground and say at the point that he doesn't want to give over his finances, that you can say, we decided that earlier. And even if he doesn't know it at that point, because probably he will forget he said that ever, but it's quite important that you have these conversations right at the point, at the beginning of dementia.
Wow, that's pretty heavy. So what do you do, though, if one day somebody is insufferable and the other day they're reasonable?
Well, it's the thing is, it all depends on you, actually. Because if you come out of a difficult conversation at work, for instance, or a meeting that was, or an argument even, you just take that energy with you to the person with dementia. And they are like a sponge. So every emotion they can feel, but they can't do anything with it. They can't translate it. They can't talk about it. They just feel it, and they don't know where it comes from. So it's really necessary that you take a few moments before you step in that door of somebody with dementia. If you go to your parents, just do a brain dump in your car. Take a piece of paper and write everything down what you think about. And then you can go in, or take a coffee, or if you want to talk to a friend, do that. Or if you just want to take a walk, that's also good. Do whatever you feel like what you need to let everything go, so you can go in at ease and with less emotionality. Yeah. That's the thing that makes a difference between one day they're really aggressive and the other day everything is good.
So how do you get them to answer something? I mean, how do you get them to say yes to something that you're asking them?
Well, it's very funny because it's a tool that comes from sales. You just let people say a few times yes to a question. The weather is good, isn't it? And they say yes. You went to the hairdressers today. Yes, I did. You know, every time they say yes. And then you can say, let's go to the doctor. Yes, we'll go to the doctor because he already said yes. And that means that it goes just a lot faster.
It's so funny because even in a sales conversation, Marianne, when we're talking business, they tell you to ask questions and get 7 yeses, and then you'll make your sale. So it's kind of the same thing with dementia. You get them to say yes, and you've made your sale for whatever it is you want them to do. So what do you think is the best way to live your best life without caring less?
So you mean
how do you live your life, the best life you can live, when you've got to care so much about somebody else?
Well, you just have to enjoy every moment that you have and use small things to keep up with your energy. Enjoy things. You know, my first cup of tea is my cup of tea, and I'm enjoying it every morning again. That's my 10 minutes. You know, I try to do some sports so I can because that gives me energy, and it's a no-go zone if you come in between that. So I keep track of my boundary in looking into what I need first, and then everybody else can come. But first me, and that's all. That's all it is. It's not all. It's difficult, but it's a really mind switch.
It's very difficult. Yeah, very difficult. So, about dementia, what are some practical things that you can tell our listeners on how to deal with it? For instance, what do you do when somebody with dementia tells a story that isn't correct? Do you correct it? Or they often will say the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, well, if they, these are two questions. If the story isn't correct, then you just act like it's a true story, because for him it's a true story. It's like dealing with children, you know. If I compare it, always they kill me here in Belgium. But if you always correct your children, they get uncertain, and the reaction to uncertainty can be anger, or not connecting to the people around, or getting aggressive, whatever. So you don't correct, because then you start correcting all the time. So just let the story be what it is. But the important thing to do in that case is to tell other people what's going on, so they understand that there's a problem with dementia, so they can understand that the story isn't correct. That's the very important thing, and it's really important to tell other people and not to go into the story. And if you have a story that's the same after the same story every time again. You're just going to the details. For instance, somebody's always told me in the war, we went with my mom to fetch groceries with a bag, and that's the story he always tells. And then once, if you take the question and you put it, what did your mom wear? He starts thinking again, and he starts looking up in his brain, what's my mom wearing? And what kind of bag is she wearing? And what kind of groceries do you get? And how did you pay? Did you have enough money? It's all that kind of questions that comes that you can detect in the story that makes the story go round and gives you another story.
Wow, that's a hard thing to do, though. It really is, but it's necessary. I can see where if it's an incorrect story, that you need to turn to the other person and say, this is her story or his story, but it's not a true story, and they need to realize that. But I can see, because I've talked to some carers, and they really need a break. So what do you do about that? I mean, do you ever take a vacation? Do you have somebody take over for you? What happens in a situation when a carer just needs a break?
Well, I can only compare with Belgium, or you just ask family members to pop in, just to take over for the weekend or for the 2 weeks you're gone. That's what we organize, or what I try to organize with people who are that I am coaching. But what we have here in Belgium is a residential care that you can do for only 2 weeks, or it's maximum 2 months for a year. So per year you have 2 months that you can put somebody temporary in residential care. I don't know how it goes in America.
But how does that affect the patient? How does that affect the person with dementia being put in a facility for whether it's a weekend or a month?
Yeah. Well, the important thing with dementia is actually that you have, how do you say it? That you have the sequence every day, the same thing. That's really important. That there is every day you get up, you take your shoes, you get your clothes from the same place, you go out the door, you put your keys in the right pocket at the same place. Every time it's the same. And once you change that, for going like in a residential care, everything switches. And that's a really difficult moment, because if somebody with dementia goes to another place, you take him out of his home, even if he's just staying with your brother, and it's another home, then everything switches. He doesn't know anything anymore, and he relies much more on other people because he's less independent. Yeah.
Interesting. So let me ask you a question, because I'm certainly, I don't know this, but I think I know a little bit about what you're going to say, but I really think our listeners need to hear this. When does dementia bloom into Alzheimer's?
Oh, there is one big difference. We all forget things, and in aging, we forget more and more. That's normal. Looking for our keys is normal. But finding your keys, for instance, in the fridge, that's not normal. Except when you put the cheese and the keys on top of the cheese. You put the cheese in the fridge and the keys on top of it. That's normal. That shit happens. But if you systematic find stuff that doesn't belong there, really in the freezer, for instance, your bag goes in the freezer, your handbag in the freezer, which is really strange. That is a trigger where you can say as somebody extern, so that your mom or your dad has dementia. That's one of the things where you need to look further. Yeah.
Okay, but we don't know when it develops into Alzheimer's.
No.
Interesting. And does it? It doesn't always develop into. But is dementia the predecessor of Alzheimer's, or just Alzheimer's just occur?
Well, dementia is a name underneath very lots of different kinds of dementia are. So we call it dementia, but it can be Alzheimer's, it can be Korsakoff, it could be frontotemporal dementia, it can be old age dementia. Every type of dementia is what we call dementia. You see what I mean? It's like the disease, the big disease and the big noun we say is dementia, but everything goes underneath it, and it all has different kind of what do you say? Types.
But it all kind of relates to Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It all relates.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
But Alzheimer's really is having difficulties in swallowing, finding words, and then and forgetting things. That's really typical for Alzheimer's.
Yeah, and I know dementia can be caused by strokes and lots of different things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Marianne, we have about 5 minutes left. If people are interested in talking to you further about this, how can they reach you?
Well, on my website, I have a website which is called, oh my God, how is it called? Marianne /Stevens. No, how do you say that? Koppelteken? It's Flemish, we call it Koppelteken.
Well, I have your website is Marianne, MARIANNE Stevens, STEVENS.BE. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's your website. So if you're trying to get a hold of Marianne, and as you can tell, she speaks English very well, so she'll be able to dialogue with you. Marianne with ANNE Stevens, STEVENS, and then .BE, because BE is for Belgium. She'll be able to give you a lot of information, and she has a lot of information on her website, so it might help you if you're dealing with someone with dementia or Alzheimer's. What else would you like to tell our listeners?
Well, I just I have three next steps for the caretaker who are taking care for somebody with dementia, which gives you an idea of where you are going. What do you need to do? Where do you need to take care of yourself before you can go further? And normally it's $147, and I'm giving it to your public for $97. And it's visible on my website.
Fantastic. So if you're looking to know the 3 steps to deal with something like this, this is the perfect ability to do that. And what else, Marianne? So are you still working as a carer?
Yes, I am. I'm taking care of my mom, my dad, and my father-in-law.
That's a little bit of a heavy responsibility. How old are your folks?
My mom is 69, my dad is 74, and my father-in-law is 80. Yeah.
So they're still young. And yet you've had to deal with this for many, many years, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So are all 3 of them suffering from dementia?
Well, no, yes. Since the last year, yes, they are. But all different kinds of dementia. My father-in-law has Parkinson's, and now with dementia, so he's forgetting things, and it's difficult to talk to him. My mom has Alzheimer's, and my dad, there is no diagnosis yet, but we can see there's something wrong. But he doesn't want me to go to the doctors with him, and the doctor says, well, I can't talk to you about it because I can't talk to it. That's privacy.
Exactly. Wow, that's a long time, Marianne, that you've had to deal with all of this. This is amazing because your mom is still young. It's 64, you said, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I'm very fortunate. My mom passed away at 99 and a half and was mentally all there. And I'm in my 80s. My sister is in her 80s, and both of us are still very active and doing a lot of things. So far, so good. But gosh, it has been a delight talking to you, Marianne, and I give you a lot of credit for everything that you're doing and everything that you're accomplishing, because what you are doing is not an easy task, and what you are doing is something that people hope they never have to do. I mean, they're privileged to do it, but they hope they never have to do it, and that makes a big difference. Well,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you so much for being with us. And Marianne, have a wonderful, wonderful day and enjoy Belgium.
Thank you. You too. Have a nice day over there.
Hi, this is Dr. Gayle, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you want to start your own business, you'll want my SOB Guide to Business Success. I know you'll love them all. I guarantee it.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I choose my guests carefully, so if you have someone you'd like me to interview, please drop me a line at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. In the meantime, check out my intro program, Mindset Matters, at www.sobmindset.com. See you next week.